Again, every Friday at 3 p.m. Next week, John's going to talk about A to J author. And the week after that, we have another guest, Rich McHugh, Systems Administrator for the University of Victoria in Canada. And he's going to talk about how he used Google Docs to create some surveys. So you can stay tuned for more information on those. So we encourage questions and comments during these webinars. You can raise your hands virtually. There should be a little button on your toolbar which you can use. If everybody can just go ahead and try to do that, if they can find it. Go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, I see some of you are finding it. And this is the way you're going to ask questions, potentially, because we have you by default muted. So we can keep a more clear line for the speaker. But if you do have a question, there are several ways to do that. Once again, raise your hand, I'll unmute you, and you can ask the question. Or you can send me a chat message, or there's a question function as well, which I will handle once you send that to me. Okay, so Laura's going to start us off with a little background on this and go into where she got the idea and what we've done with it so far. So Laura, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, I'm going to switch to your screen then.
What? Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen now. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining in on the call. Some of you attended the Cali conference in June, and we had a great work session about social media best practices for law schools, and we talked about a lot of different ways social media can be used to reach out to students and alums and a bunch of different audiences. But just a little bit of background in case you all don't know or aren't familiar. I was frustrated with my law school. I'm, as Austin said, a student at the University of Iowa in Iowa City. And I was frustrated with them because they were advising students to pretty much take down any profiles that we had online, or really limit our Facebook, that kind of thing, not to comment on blogs, not to have a blog, or of course just saying use common sense, don't say stupid things, which isn't very helpful. So we
Hey,
also
Laura?
got a half hour. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Can you speak up? Some people are having trouble hearing you. I can hear you fine, but I think it's the connection. So
Okay.
some people are.
Maybe this will be a little bit better. Just let Austin know if you still can't hear me. But we had several horror stories during orientation. Everybody's heard about these, and it just seemed like a not very smart approach to students. And the question that kept coming up in my head is, isn't there a better way to help students get ahead by using social media and presenting themselves online? But of course, talking to students, if you are part of a law school, is only one tiny piece of the puzzle, because staff, in order to advise students, have to know how to use social media to give good advice. And if staff are using social media, then of course schools should have guidelines for staff so that they're all doing it consistently and quote-unquote right. And administrators have to know how to do it if they're going to be drafting guidelines for their staff. And this process is, or taking these steps backwards is kind of how we got to where we are today, and trying to come up with some kind of comprehensive planning and policy process for law schools having social media best practices, and eventually coming up with some actual documents. This here on screen is the website that I drafted that just compiled a lot of the information that I had curated from the internet about different ways that schools can advise students and their staff and employers about how to look for good information about students and reach out to people online for recruiting purposes. Like we said, we talked about it at CaliCon in June. Here on screen are some of the things that we'd talked about, and basically it was just a lot of people had questions, and there was a lot of discussion, but we didn't really get anywhere. It was just sort of raising the issue, which we're coming back to today. We have developed a network that I think a lot of you are members of. It's a Ning Network at socialmediabestpractices.org. It's a place where anyone who has anything to do with a law school can come to learn about using social media and providing input and sharing experiences to maybe come up with some actual policies. So just to go over to that website right now, I'm not logged in, so this is what anyone who visits the site sees. Of course, we've got the the little ad for the Cali webinar today. And Austin, if you have things to point out, just jump in. But I wanted to draw people's attention here on the home page. We have a draft example of an actual document. I'm not going to pull it up right now. It's Microsoft Word. But it has recommendations for how staff at any organization can use social media to represent the institution, some guidelines for doing that, as well as sort of recommendations and, I guess, requests from the institution on how staff of a law school or any organization should use social media kind of on their own or on their own time or as an individual professionally, whether they're representing the school or not. And that, I hope, can be kind of a jumping off point for some discussion about it, because there are definitely institutions that, and Austin, we'll talk about the survey in just a sec here, but there are some that believe that letting your staff kind of run wild and get on social media and have lots of different people representing your institution interacting with all kinds of constituents is a great idea, and some people who think that's not such a great idea. And of course, some that are just saying, why should I care, or I don't know where to go from here. Also on the site, there's, of course, all the membership information. If you join, we ask you to put in which school you're affiliated with and your title. There's a place to contribute photos, videos, discussion forum, hosting events. People can create groups. And, of course, there's a chat if you're logged in. Can talk to whoever else is online. So that's basically this website. There's links to, again, to some information that I've curated about resources for institutional development of social media policy considerations, and lots more. So Austin, do you want to talk about the survey that you conducted and the results from that?
Sure. And again, that website is socialmediabestpractices.org. You can get there by going to socialmediapractices.org. So we just kind of want to create a community for everyone to discuss potential guidelines or policy or news on using social media in law schools. So we need your feedback and we need your discussions there. So that's what we're hoping to get out of that. So let me change to my screen here. All right, Laura, can you see my screen right now?
Yep.
Okay, and what is it showing?
It's blue. Well, now it's, there you go. Now you're on PowerPoint.
Oh, okay, okay. Let me go from the beginning. And can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, man, I got to go through that. Okay, the survey results. We had a nice mix of people use the survey, and this was up until, I think I made this chart on Wednesday, so there's still some more people who used it, and the numbers aren't quite right, but I think it's a good enough cross-section of it that we know how it turned out. Let's see, a good amount of professors and some deans, admissions staff, librarians, and you can mark 2 on this too, so these numbers don't add up to 100 because some people have different functions, obviously, in their job. So, like I said, over 100 people at this point had taken the survey. One of the questions we asked was, does your school have a set of policies or guidelines to guide students who use social media? As you can see, only 4 said they did, and 114 at that time said no, they did not. And that was the exact same number of people who had or who knew of guidelines or policies for employees such as professors or staff at their school. So schools don't really have much guidance, or people who work at schools and students at schools don't have much guidance as to where they can go with social media or what they can do. Now, were some of the things that people disagreed with, some of the statements. As you can see, on a scale of 1 to 5, my institution encourages positive use of social media among students. Was pretty low. My institution encourages positive use of social media among its faculty and staff. Again, even lower. And my school overall understands the issues presented by the growing use of social media. Again, pretty low. So what we have is what we thought was the problem is the case. Schools don't really know what to tell their people about social media, and to do so in a positive way, and to encourage it for positive use, and which is why we hear all these horror stories about social media. And part of that is that they're perceived, at least, not to understand the issues presented by it. And these are some statements that I thought were important that you guys did agree with. A set of guidelines for social media users at my school would be helpful. Again, it is important that social media users at my school fully understand the privacy options, which is one of the things we're talking about, how to properly use privacy options, whether you're a student or whether you're a professor or a staff. And again, social media sites like Facebook can be a positive professional networking tool for students. Again, that's something that you all agreed with. So that's kind of the problems we're looking at right now, and the issues we want to tackle here. Okay, Laura, did you want to talk about goals, or did you already go over that part? Okay,
no,
I wasn't sure.
I can talk about it. You don't have to give me in control if you don't want to. I can just talk. But either way, I've identified 6 or 7 concrete things that we want to do moving forward, since, as Austin pointed out, people really did think that there was some need to have a standardized policy or recommendations that schools could adopt or at least buy into about social media use. So our first step is to get some kind of commitment from schools to work towards a standardized social media use policy. And I think a lot of you are doing that by being here today and participating in socialmediabestpractices.org if you've joined that network, and hopefully starting conversations with your administrators if you are not an administrator, and with your staff if you are. I think we need to have some kind of a little bit better tally of who's on board and what representatives at the schools are interested in working on it. So that's something that we'll definitely be bugging you for, either through the network or via email pretty soon. Collecting data to talk about policy recommendations is a big step of what we were doing with that survey. As Austin pointed out, there were only 4 schools out of 118 institutions represented in the survey, or 118 respondents, as of when it was tabulated, that indicated that only 4 of those said that they had any kind of policy or thought they had any guidelines about social media. And that, I think that in and of itself really speaks to the need for what we're doing. Then we're going to work on actual documents. I pointed you all to socialmediabestpractices.org. I'm just going to keep saying it. I pointed you all there to there's the section that's called Files for Discussion, and there is an actual draft policy. I encourage you strongly to open that up, download it, take a look at it, share it with whomever in your administration might be interested in it. And also, if you think that your school would be against what I think a draft is a pretty liberal policy, to use that to start a good discussion about why a lot of people who are ignorant about how social media can be used positively, why there's a lot of fear, or why people think that it is a bad thing or it needs to be shut down, and just talk about how people need to be realistic about what's going on. So I think hopefully drafting those actual guidelines will be a good step, and part of that is available on the website. Then we want to recruit a few schools at least who are willing to adopt guidelines that people have given input to and provide feedback to the entire group so that we can critique how those might be working or how they've been received by the broader audience at their school. Then, of course, we would evaluate that feedback, and after everyone thinks they're just wonderful, look for adoption of some kind of standardized guidelines by as many schools as we possibly can. The benefit of this is that I personally strongly believe that having good guidelines and educating everyone involved about using social media in a positive and proactive way will result in better connected students, faculty that are more collaborative, staff that are better integrated with each other and with their colleagues around the country, alumni that are more engaged and more willing to be generous to your school, and a public in your community that's more supportive and better informed. So I obviously have very positive and probably Pollyanna-ish ideas about where this project can go, but that's kind of where we're looking to go from here.
Yep, that sums it up as far as what we want to do. So now I want to open this up to questions or comments. Does anybody have any questions about what social media actually is, what we're referring to when we talk about this? I know it's kind of late in the game here to talk about that, but of course we mean Facebook, things like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I know someone sent me a message about to define social media, but that's what we mean. It's hard to really define it, but those are examples of it at least.
Yeah, and I would add to that just anything where you're interacting online, whether it's the ability to chat live, blogging, commenting on blogs, reviewing, products or items or professors or whatever it may be, all of those kind of Web 2.0, as they're called, technologies that allow some kind of interaction among users and between users and the people who created the site.
Yes. I guess you can define it. So nobody has any questions or comments, because I'd really like a discussion to take place, at least if not here, again at socialmediabestpractices.org, and we just want to talk about, give us some feedback on that policy that Laura posted. So
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, John.
So Laura, do you want, we're coming up to the beginning of a new school year, which is always an opportunity for schools to, and sometimes it's the only opportunity for schools to talk to, I guess that would be 40,000 brand new 1Ls.
That's right.
Do you want them to tell their 1Ls about the website and to participate in the legislative process of creating a best practices document, or not?
I think that's an excellent question. I think maybe not all 40,000 or maybe not all, hundreds of thousands should be included in the policy making part, but I do think that having students involved is important. I know we have at least 4 or 5 students already signed up on the network from different schools around the country. I'm the only one from Iowa, for example, and I think that having students involved, because a lot of times students are the ones who know how to use these technologies or are using them in ways that are different from how the faculty and staff are probably using them for their own purposes. So I think it's important to have that perspective. I don't know about everyone, but I think anyone who's listening who has a relationship with students who maybe are vocal about giving input, or the SBA president, or someone like that who would be able to kind of be a touchstone for their student community and get input and help give input to other students would definitely be excellent. We're not excluding anyone from the network and from looking at what's there and giving input to what's there, but I don't know, I think pointing students maybe to some of the resources about how they should create their online identity is a great idea. And all of that is available on, linked from the network, but it's at smbp.laurabergus.com right now.
What do you think of the idea that this is like John Doe Society meetings, where every law school has a couple of students who are particularly keyed into the idea of social media, heavy users, or interested in the issues, the policies, and might want to start their own local effort, you might say, to increase the awareness within their schools, sort of the way you're doing that at Iowa. There are other Laura Berguses around who would want to be thought leaders at their schools. Maybe the people on this broadcast can, I don't know, it's a way of creating an opportunity for a student who's interested by pointing a group of them to this website so that they can do their own thing at their own school. I mean, that's the ultimate in social media, right? It's for yourself.
Yep. And using students and leveraging, the time and energy of students to do some of the heavy lifting of creating and maintaining a social media identity is a great idea. I mean, we call them research assistants at Iowa, even if they're just administrative assistants. But, having students doing any kind of the grunt work that's involved with this, I think, is a great way to have them involved, too.
Absolutely. And I think we're about to wrap up here, but I wanted to add that I will post the information about the survey, the final results. I assume I'll put it on the Cali blog, which is cali.org/blog. Also, I'll, of course, post it to the social media, bestpractices.org as well, so you guys can take a look at the entire survey. Some interesting stuff in there. So other than that, is there anything else, Laura or John, you'd like to add?
I just hope people get involved. I want to hear someone say that there's no way their school would ever do this, and it's a horrible idea, because we're not hearing that side of the conversation yet.
Yeah.
But, so if anyone out there thinks that, please speak up online or somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, or if anybody has things that they think should be addressed but aren't being addressed by these conversations or these, or on the website, send an email to Austin, Laura, and/or me, or participate in the discussion on the website, socialmediabestpractices.org. Did I get that right?
Yep, you got it.
Yeah. We do have a couple of people raising their hand. Patrick Riedling, I'm going to unmute you, so be aware. Patrick?
Hey, yes. I was just curious, out of those 118 schools, the 4 that did have some sort of practices or best practices in place, would those schools be willing to just share who they are so that we could actually go to their websites and kind of see what it is they're doing, not on getting the inside scoop, but getting the outside scoop and seeing how people are interacting with them?
Yeah, that's a fantastic
Find out and see if they would be willing to share that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And one of the things, hopefully some of those people who marked yes in that left their email address, and I'll be able to follow up with them. And if there's anyone on the call right now, just raise your hand who does have a policy, because if you could share that, that would be very helpful, and we could go over that and discuss it amongst the group at least. But that would be very helpful. Yes, that's a great point. But like I said, hopefully those at least 1 or 2 of those people left their email address, and I'll be able to follow up with them. But I'll let everybody know at the website if anybody did. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
Rob Richards, you also have your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you as well.
Great. Thanks a lot. It's a terrific presentation and a wonderful project. I've just done some work in policy formation before, and it often helps to have clear deadlines and goals set up, and to coordinate those with other organizations like AALS. I was wondering if you folks had set a time frame and timeline with deadlines for accomplishing the stages of developing this policy.
We don't have, I mean, as a soft deadline, we talked about, I always get AALS and AALL confused, but one of those big conferences, we wanted to to do something there eventually, that be a deadline. But there's nothing hard in place as far as a deadline goes. But I would say that's something we should definitely talk about. So, and a very good suggestion. So thank you. Well, that's about a half hour now, and I don't see any other hands. So, Laura, thank you so much for doing this. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll see everybody at socialmediabestpractices.org. And again, check out our blog, Twitter, Facebook for more announcements on webinars and this very project. And there are our next webinars coming up. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week at 3.
Thank you.
Thanks.